Morning, I'm Shannon Sims.
And I'm Charles Benson. Welcome to 4-1 Forward.
From today's TMJ4, this is 4-1 Forward.
And this month marks 6 months since the violence in Sherman Park.
This morning, a conversation about what has changed in the Milwaukee neighborhood with people invested in making a difference. But first, let's take a look back to August 13th. Tensions ran high as a crowd gathered on 44th and Hour.
Moments before, Milwaukee police officer Dominic Hagan Brown shot and killed Seville Smith during a traffic stop. Detectives say Smith ran armed with a gun.
Hours later, frustration and anger boiled over. Cars set on fire, businesses burning.
Fire continues to burn out of control. The Sherman Park neighborhood rocked to its core.
Again, we are at 1:43 in the morning as the city of Milwaukee has erupted in chaos.
That night brought out the worst. But days later, the best of humanity was displayed.
You're gonna get a cupcake.
Now, 6 months later, we ask, has Sherman Park recovered? It is important to note that former Officer Hagan Brown was later charged. That case is currently going through the courts.
So this morning we have Shar and Peter Borg, who are longtime residents of this community, and they join us today just to talk about that day and where we're at now.
Yeah. Sherman Park, I think we were all pretty surprised by what happened that night. As a matter of fact, we had just had some friends over for dinner. Everybody was having a good time. Everything seemed quiet. And then the next thing we knew, we started getting phone calls and text messages. Hey, are you guys okay?
And you were blocks away from where all of this transpired. Peter, for you, you came into this community knowing that you wanted to make a difference.
Absolutely, and it was a strange night because we walked outside at midnight and looked up and down our block, and it was quiet. You heard crickets. It didn't look any different than any other night, and yet, literally 4 blocks away, all of this was going on. And
so what surprised you most? We know the shooting occurred, but then afterward, when you're seeing cars being torched, buildings burning, what caught you by surprise?
I would say for me, that caught me by surprise. I mean, that's not the Sherman Park I know, okay? That shocked me. That happens in other cities, that happens in other places. I mean, even in Milwaukee, other neighborhoods, not in Sherman Park. So yeah, I was shocked and dumbfounded that that was happening in my neighborhood. Couldn't believe it.
Let's fast forward to today. Tell people what is happening in Sherman Park that has not changed.
People there are still really invested. You don't see a lot of extra for sale signs. You see people who are rolling up their sleeves. They're getting to know their neighbors. They're spending time with one another. And there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of expectation that good will come from this.
But was there a call to duty, even from folks like yourself who'd been invested in the community already, and say, all right, do we need to step up more? What do we need to change? Peter?
Oh, certainly. So this happened on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
We woke up at about 5:30 on Sunday morning and immediately started texting all sorts of pastors we knew because we have a church that meets at Washington High School.
Yeah.
And we said, come and gather with us after service and walk to the intersection of Sherman and Burleigh and bring trash bags and bring a smile and come and meet the neighbors and listen to stories. And so I think, what surprises me most has been how the church, not just right in Milwaukee, but churches from 4 counties have really started to come together to say, all right, there's something here that we all should be vested in addressing.
What do you want people, though, most importantly, to know about your community that you call home?
Yeah, I feel like people move to communities that they consider safe and quiet. But Sherman Park has been called the urban Mayberry, and I want people to know that's for real. I borrow eggs from my neighbors.
You're okay with that?
It's like small town, but it's right there in the heart of the city. People are for real and they're intentional, and we look out for each other, and we look out for each other's kids, and we discipline each other's kids. That's real life. That's Sherman Park.
And I think another thing that surprised a lot of people while we were also doing stories after the fact is that this is a multicultural neighborhood. And that's different to say that in Milwaukee.
Absolutely. I would say Sherman Park is the most integrated neighborhood in all of Milwaukee. And it's on purpose. People are intentional about it. So you have people moving in, whether, white, black, Asian. I mean, that's what our neighbors are. It's everybody. And what we have in common is that we love the city and we love our neighbors.
But did you see a dialogue as well about, we could use more jobs. We need more activities for youth. There is poverty. We've got to address these issues as well. Do you think they've moved the ball forward because of the events and people putting more focus on what's happening there?
Well, certainly. I mean, I think one of the larger philanthropic organizations in the city has a fund that's designated for Sherman Park. So you see that occurring. There's a group of pastors that meet a whole bunch once every 6 weeks, but then in between in smaller groups to go ahead and begin addressing some different problems, starting with spiritual disconnectedness, but then on down through job opportunities and some of the more natural things that you would think about after a riot. And so I think there's a lot of different efforts that are taking place right now to go ahead and say, hey, this is a wonderful place. Let's make it wonderful for everybody.
But Shar, if you had a chance to sit in front of city leaders, church leaders, community leaders, you can say, you know what though? Boy, if we can get this, if we can do that, what would that be?
I guess I would say more than anything, the relationship between the churches, the schools, and the business community all need to be brought together. And, you know, so often we talk about separation of church and state, but the reality is there's a real dearth of relationship between the schools and the churches and the business community. And when you bring that all together, you can provide sort of a well-rounded, holistic life opportunity
Safety
for
net.
people. Exactly, a safety net. That's exactly right.
Peter, your thoughts on that too? I mean, you knew that you said pastors started calling the day after, but do you feel more of the team effort and that you're reaching out to people on all levels, all platforms?
Absolutely. You know, one of the exciting things that Dr. Driver is doing with MPS right now is she's established and hired someone to run a partnership program so that every single MPS school has a point person for building partnerships with not-for-profits, with businesses, with churches. And so one of the goals that we have is to go ahead and find a church to adopt every single one of the 158 MPS schools, with the idea that if you can get every single third grader reading at grade level, doing math at grade level, so by grade 4, when you're no longer learning to read, but you're reading to learn, then imagine the ripple effects that's going to have in kids' self-esteem and the stress level of parents, in the job and college prospects that high school graduates are going to have. So I think it's something that it's not short-term solutions, but it's these real long-term solutions that are going to go ahead and really turn the ship of the entire city.
Is it fair to say it really does take a village to raise them?
Oh, without question. Not only
Even our own.
right, exactly. Exactly.
Well, we thank you both for coming here and sharing your story and what's happening in the Sherman Park neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Our pleasure.
And just to see your faces, to see that you're still smiling after.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. And people are still moving in. I'm a realtor. People are still calling to move in.
That sounds good. Thank you, guys. Well, coming up, we're going to go right to the front lines of an organization with one mission in mind.
Also later on 4-1 Forward, a close shave for teachers and staff, all for a good cause.